This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hey, Carm here, and the world continues to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic as well as gearing up for the Yuletide season. Now, I invited psychologist Dr. Dave Weiman, the president of Weiman Consulting, back here to talk about dealing with the stress we face at the holidays. Dr. Dave gives you some great tips to help you get through the season. As an example, he says, maintain your routines, especially during the holidays. It gives our life a sense of structure and stability, and it helps provide continuity over time. Now, this is just one coping tactic that he provides. This is an episode that all in your circle should listen to. Send the link to the members of your team, your peer group, your spouse, and your family. Carm Capriato, the Aftermarket Podcast Guy. And hey, thanks for joining us in our usual full-course meal on the best ideas from and for the automotive aftermarket. This episode is another example of the power in the voices, ideas, and insights that are shaping the future of the automotive aftermarket. So proud to do this with you. Check out the massive number of episodes that they're ready for you at remarkableresults.biz. The talking points for this episode with Dr. Dave and a link to his previous episodes can be found at remarkableresults.biz/E593. Hey, a warm welcome to Dr. Dave Weiman, psychologist from Weiman Consulting, and his second time on the podcast.
It is good to be with you.
Thank you. It was so much fun the last time that I had to have you back soon. And the last episode was Gratitude Creates Connection, Trust, and Relieve Stress. If you've not listened to 579, please go back and listen. So I reached out to Dave, and I said, come on, because I want to know something, Dave. Are the holiday blues real?
Right before we started this conversation, I started to think about the traditions. And I thought, well, this is kind of obvious. A tradition is something that's passed down, right? That's part of the definition of it. And so it is no surprise that we think about the folks who came before us around the holidays. And for a lot of people, those are very pleasant memories. I have them myself.
Yeah.
But it's also a reminder that that person isn't here. My older brother had been friends with a family where he used to go to their annual Christmas. It was just family for the holidays. And it was a Christmas party, and I was fortunate enough. Unfortunately, my brother passed away about 20 years ago, and the family started inviting me to celebrate with them. And as soon as I came in the door, the father of the patriarch of the family, handed me a Christmas ornament, and he said, "We always have the guests hang a Christmas ornament on the tree, and this was your brother's." And it was bittersweet, but it was mostly sweet. So that was a memory of somebody who's no longer with me, but I was able to continue that tradition. And I think those are the things that, I mean, in the sort of the hierarchy of a family, he's not my father, my grandfather, but I do think that that's part of what we're carrying on is those holiday traditions, and necessarily those involve people who aren't here any longer. But for a lot of people, I think the holiday blues go along not just with that, but perhaps feeling lonely, paradoxically, when other people are getting together. And that may have to do with just our basic personality styles. There's some people who are more social and really get energized by being around other people, and others who find that a little bit overwhelming, and they get more of their energy from being alone. But around these times, I think there's also a bit of comparison that goes on, particularly with social media.
That's I don't even want to go there. I do want to go there, but I don't want to go there because we don't have enough time to cover the stress that social media, my tree's bigger than your tree thing, that I think a little bit of it creates. But I love your message. Just attempt to do everything that you've done in the past by being safe. I mean, this is the pandemic, time of the pandemic. They're even saying that our state says you can't have more than 10 people at a holiday dinner. Right. Now, I'm not sure if the Thanksgiving police are going to come out door to door, knocking on every door, and if they have enough time in 3 or 4 hour dinner time. But it's amazing how that is all stressful.
It is. And these are times when we're typically not following rules, right? We're giving ourselves permission to enjoy one another, to eat whatever we want, and to take pleasure in these things that normally we don't. And it's not just Thanksgiving. It's from Thanksgiving right through New Year's Day. To have to, now that you mention it, to have to think about restrictions and the number of people at a time when we're typically just having fun and celebrating and not following rules and not being restricted, I think is really important. And it's for people who are concerned about things like that to have to worry about what does the 11th person mean? If we're being safe, maybe it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you're safe with 5 people, I understand the science of it as well, but at the same time, I think it'll be tough for folks for exactly the reason that you just mentioned.
Well, I didn't mean to bring it up and say, woe is me, it's my county. I know the same things are going on out in California. Sure. There's a lot of our country that are being affected by what's called the second wave or the third, whatever that is. I don't want to carry too much on that, but a lot of people are worried. They won't even go. They said, listen, you got to let me go. I just won't come to work. I will not wear a mask. I'm afraid. So there's a lot of stress. As you said earlier, everybody gets their energy from different places. Everybody has their tolerance levels to, sure. Will COVID affect me or won't it? And is there a therapeutic that can help me? And God help it, will I die if I get it? So we have changed our entire world, and the holidays, you know this better than me, is a time of celebration. It's a time of family. And what can we do, Dr. Dave, to try to, do we stay in a certain routine? I mean, do we try to stay stable, if there's such a word?
Well, it's interesting. In preparing for the podcast, I thought, I'm a psychologist. I wonder what psychologists are telling each other to do during this time. How are we advising one another because of the particular stresses of being in a helping profession? And they were no different. There was nothing magic there. But one of the things that leapt out at me was the routines, to maintain the routines that we have. The word that you just used is so powerful, because those are the things that we control that give our lives a sense of stability and a sense of structure and help provide this continuity over time. So one key thing is to maintain those routines as we go into the holiday period. So if you're somebody who ordinarily takes a walk with your wife or spouse or somebody else, or even by yourself, because we have to make sure we're accounting for the folks who don't necessarily want to be around other people right now. But if you normally take a walk right after dinner, keep taking a walk right after dinner. If you normally go to work out, on a Saturday morning, go work out on Saturday morning. That keeping those things that are reliable, and structured in our lives can be really important, because it gives us this touchstone, this something that we know we typically do. If you call your mom every Sunday at 1 o'clock, call your mom every Sunday at 1 o'clock. The routines that you have are important to keep. And I think that stability, that reliability, that thing that we have control over is really important.
I love what you just said. I wrote down just do it. My wife bakes for the holiday, makes these great coffee cakes and cookies, and her and Tracy and our daughter-in-law now. And she says, hey, we can't stop doing that. We still have to, and you're right about that. So baking, tree trimming.
Oh, these traditions, yeah, absolutely.
Keep them going.
Keep them going. And that joy will come back. So the part of the brain that recognizes the things that sparked joy before, and I'm borrowing that term, who is that personal organizer, Marie Kondo, what sparks joy? What, when you see it, makes you happy? Those again, I'll call them touchstones. Bringing out some of the pots or pans, the baking molds, or the tree. Those things are going to reignite those memories that we have, these positive associations we have with the holidays, and to take pleasure in that and to focus on it. So those traditions are super, super important. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because all of those things that go into it, just the smells around the house, around that time of year, or the things that we bring in for the holidays. The other day, I was at a local pharmacy, and they had all these different Christmas candies and decorations out. And I got to tell you, it just made me happy to see them, and to see that back. I have some friends out in California, and there's a company that makes an ice cream that has little broken up bits of candy cane in it. And they only make it and sell it around Christmas time. And that's something that this friend of mine just loves. And I'm like, you're going to love that again because all those associations are there.
Your point's so well taken. Carm here, and coming up, Dr. Dave Weiman offers some advice on how to decline a party invite in light of the pandemic. Hey, it's Carm here. Today, I have a special message for Napa Auto Care Centers who are looking to take the next step in growing their business and partnership. Now, if you're ready to strive and take it to the next level, Napa invites you to consider Gold Certification. Gold Certification is a premier tier of Napa Auto Care that recognizes repair shops with a higher level of participation in the Auto Care program. The program was built by Auto Care Centers for Auto Care Centers to provide a consistent consumer experience, maximize technology leverage, and reward Napa's most committed partners. When consumers visit a Gold Certified Auto Care Center, whether it's a small facility in a rural community or a multi-bay shop in a large metropolitan area, they can expect a first-class service repair experience. This includes a well-trained staff using today's technology and quality Napa parts in a comfortable, up-to-date facility. Customers at Gold Certified shops will also enjoy an extended parts and labor warranty, valuable saving opportunities, along with access to credit to pay for needed repairs, and a whole lot more. Here's what you need to qualify for the program. First, you need to be an active auto care partner for at least 12 months and have a steady business presence in your market for at least 2 years. Then, to become Gold Certified, it's necessary to meet specific requirements, chosen because they create the most consistent consumer experience and proven to generate the most significant results for auto care centers across the country. Some of these include using digital vehicle inspection, having at least one ASE Master Certified technician, a co-branded exterior, and offer consumer financing through Napa Easy Pay. You must also be an active member of a business development group. Once your shop achieves Gold Certification, you'll receive a number of benefits, including priority placement on Napa's shop locator pages, an allowance for marketing funds, 3636 peace of mind and local labor coverage, access to auto tech training, Napa Track's shop management system, Smart Sign digital menu board, and more. Talk with your servicing Napa store to find out everything you need to know about becoming a Gold Certified shop. I love the picture you gave me. Walked in and saw all these candies. It's almost like, so buy one, even if just so buy one and take it home and binge on it. and binge on it. Why? Because you're almost trying to, on purpose, move your thinking, move your spirit, move all the negative that's going on in our world into a new zone.
That's right. And we can do that. We have the power to do that because we choose what to think about in any given moment. Even if there's, bad news on TV, well, I have the ability to turn that off and then go do something else. And to think differently about what's happening around me. And for most people who are being safe, their surroundings are no different than they typically are. I was asking a friend of mine, it's been 9 months. What's changed for you? 9 months into the pandemic. And she said, I always worked from home. I always walk my dog. I always, make dinner. Not much has changed. Like the outside world and the hysteria has changed. But in her own sphere, she really said, I always eat out. She's in a warmer climate down south. And so that ability to recognize what's the same is important. Even when I'm consulting with organizations and they're about to make a change, they say, you got to be aware. There's people who love change. There's people who don't. For the people who love change, they're going to be on board. They're excited about something new. For the people who don't love change, tell them what's staying the same. And I think that if we look at what's staying the same, and that's the concepts you and I have just been talking about, the routines and the traditions, that's really important as our rock.
Dr. Dave, as a side note, you just mentioned as you consult with businesses on change, has it been an extraordinary time in these last 9 months to help companies cope with and deal with it? I mean, have you had to get deeper into the organization and not just the top leadership?
Yes. And what's interesting about this is something that might seem sort of silly, but people are at home, and when they're doing Zoom meetings, other people can see where they live and what they've put around themselves. And they see a dog walking by, and they didn't know the person had a dog. Or they see a craft. I was on a Zoom conference call with a local chamber of commerce, and this person had built the shelves that were behind him, and he was really proud of it. And he said, "Oh, you'll probably notice that one of them is crooked." I'm like, "That's awesome! Like, that's awesome! I like the custom work, and the fact that it's a little crooked is actually pretty charming. Like, that's awesome. Not everything needs to be all squared up when you've made it yourself. Sometimes the little blemishes in the wood or the things that we had to adapt make it all that much more special." So I think people have gotten a window into the personal side of the people that they work with. And of course, the time horizon that we can look at into the future and know what's going on has gotten a lot shorter. So business people of all types have had to think, well, maybe I could have planned for the next 6 months or the next year or 18 months out. There's one organization of entrepreneurs that says, your mission is really the three-year plan. Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Well, people can't see that far out right now. The cone of certainty has gotten shorter. The cone of uncertainty has gotten shorter. But the reality is that we always have the ability to think ahead, no matter what that distance out is. So maybe now it's just, what are the next 6 months going to look like? And then beyond that, are people going to be back at work or not? So many people listening to this podcast are essential workers. They're in the shop. They're in the service center. That's what they do. But they are dealing with people who may be a little wary about coming to a business like that. Who do I give the keys to? Like, do I leave them on the counter and walk away? And even how a lot of auto service centers have reorganized themselves. So that's still there. But yeah, I think that the ones who have done the best are the ones who are realistic and optimistic at the same time. That's the old Admiral Stockdale concept, that you can be optimistic, but you have to anchor it to reality. And those are the ones who have said, I got my, an old, sorry for the analogy, but they have their pedal to the floor. They did not stop. They kept going. And the folks listening to this podcast couldn't stop. They had to keep going because they were essential. But it's the ones who've just kept moving that I think have done the best.
Thanks for sharing realistic, optimistic. That's me. You've just described me. And I'm a person that'll go out. I'm an ideas guy, and I'll just be optimistic. Go, 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 go. People will, they'll just stop and look. Is he serious? Is he for real? But inside, I know I'm a realist.
Yep.
And I know that I can't do all of that. I know that I'm kind of dangling ideas. I know I'm pushing people's thoughts or thinking. And at the end of the day, I think you end up doing what's real, what can be done, what won't break, won't break your company, won't break your stride.
But that gift that you have for generating ideas, we all know, even in the natural world, not all the babies that are born in the natural world, out in nature, for animals, they don't all survive. But that's why they produce so many. And in business, that's a really important. What you brought up is so important because it's the ideas that you're capable of generating. And you also mentioned something that is sort of the challenge to others to think a little bit beyond where their little safety zone is as well. And that what you're doing is really, really valuable.
What I don't do is I don't share with people says, well, I just threw out, 50 ideas. I may do one. Or you heard me just spew passion. It doesn't mean that all those great ideas are doable, but you almost need, as you said, you got to think a little further down the road. So as you are walking that pathway, it's not unfamiliar.
Exactly. And even the idea that I can come up with these options are gold to me, right? That's the key to the mint, because that's what makes me feel like I have more than one tool. I have more than one option to solve a problem.
I loved your analogy on Zoom. Thank you for that. I had not thought about when you're looking at everyone and seeing where they live and their environment. And I wrote down log cabin home, and someone that I didn't have a clue lived in a log cabin home. And of course, you can't miss that when they're on Zoom,
so
right?
Cool. Right.
The walls are logs. and so anyway, that was a big takeaway from your Zoom thing. And the other thought that I had, Dr. Dave, was that I'm going to have to be a card-carrying member of the vaccine club someday, since they're saying, some of the international flying and stuff, that we want to see that you've had a vaccine. We won't let you on. Isn't that interesting?
It really is. And it's something that we don't even know yet works, but it's something that we can do, right? And that's important.
So let's talk about our repair business, our entrepreneurs out there, the listener who listens to this podcast, and think about what they need to do to lead their company through the holiday, knowing that they've done a great job so far. We've been essential. So many of them have had a lot of success in the last, also summer was an incredible year for turnaround as far as revenues and attitudes. And here we come in, and who knows if they lost people, if they're continuing to practice safety. What can we do as business people to help coach our people through the holiday?
Well, all the things that you mentioned are the things that change. The things that don't are my values as the business owner. So I want to link as much as possible what people are doing to my values and also my purpose. Why are we here? And because that hasn't changed, and it fits what we were talking about previously about what are the threads that run all the way through this. So if somebody's done a phenomenal job, you want to give them that feedback, and you want to be specific. And you want to tell them exactly what they did. And you want to tell them the impact it had on you. But you can go one step further and say, and that matters because we're here to do X, Y, or Z. Or I really value people who step up, and you did that. And so this anchors the adaptation that people are making in the shop due to all of this swirl of stuff that's going around to something that doesn't change. As the shop owner, my values and my purpose.
If I was going to coach my people and or myself to get through the tumultuous, stressful holidays, that they're there all the time, Dr. Dave. Now we got COVID sitting on top of that in a lot of unknowns. Coach, spend a moment and tell us what we need to do to help our people recognize the value and the power of connections.
These connections are key because there's no replacement for that. There's no machine I can buy that replaces the trust that I have in other people. And so recognizing that is really important. And that may not be something that particularly men often talk about, that connection, that relationship with other people. But that's what's so valuable right now. And that's when people are showing up, that's key. When employees are coming in with all that's going on, that's key. So how do you recognize that connection? In the same way that we just talked about, you talk about it and you talk about the impact on you of that. That's the part that we often say, hey, add a guy, or that's a great job. The part that's missing is, and the impact on me is, and follow up with that you showed up day after day in all of this made me feel like we have a phenomenal team here. And that's what that's been really important to me. People will not forget that. How you make them feel is so critical, and it helps build that relationship. The other thing that people can do is what I call referencing. Referencing is storytelling. It's about something that happened in the past that's an example of a competency or a value that's made our business successful. So how do you do this? When you recognize the person for doing that specific thing that shows that connection, you can also call back to another time that they did it in the past. Hey, this reminds me of that time you stayed late that night because that person said that they had no other way to get to their job the next day. We were closing at 5, but you said you were going to stay an extra hour to do that. And so you're building this history of that relationship together. These are super subtle points, but they're really powerful because I'm not only saying you did this phenomenal thing right just now, that made me feel really good, And it's just like this other time that you did that. So I'm showing them the pattern. I'm pointing out what they did that made me trust them more confident that they can do the job, and how it made me feel now and in that prior time. So we're connecting some dots for people in the relationship.
I love that. That is just some great advice. I wrote down, reach out and touch someone.
Exactly.
And so we've got friends everywhere all the time. I mean, some friends come, some friends go, they move away. Maybe a whole part of the re-energized, refocused, no stress zone of the holiday, now that was funny, is just to reach out and touch someone.
And you can do that in more than one way. There's the same pharmacy that I mentioned to you earlier has an employee who is just phenomenal. And he's always going the extra mile for people. I see him running around looking for stuff if he sees people that seem like they're not sure where something is. And he's just great. And I wrote a letter to the manager of the pharmacy. And then I thought, well, that's the manager of that pharmacy. It happens to be a chain. I thought, why don't you write to the president of the company, the CEO? And so I wrote a letter to the CEO with specific things that this employee did that really mattered and meant something to me, and showed how he really delivers for people. And I copied it and I gave it to the employee the next time I saw him. And I didn't want to stand there while he was reading it. It felt a little weird. But when I walked out of the store, I could see him through the window reading this letter. And he had this huge smile on his face. Why? Well, this is an actual physical thing that he can take with him. He can show other people, he can reread it. So to the extent that the shop owners are comfortable doing this, you don't have to write a letter. You're the boss. But a small card or note, something where you put your hand to paper, because that's what do we ask people to do when we show them an estimate? We want them to sign it, right? We want them to pick up something physical and mark their name on that paper. This still matters today, even with all the electronics that we have. So if you can write even a brief handwritten note to somebody, that means so much. You can see when they read it, the pride that they feel, the connection that they have, the physical, the tactile. The folks listening to this podcast work with their hands every day, physically have to touch something. Yes, when I open the trunk, the hood of my car, there's a big sheet over the top of it, like there's a plastic case there. I can't even see anything into the engine. All I see is this big plastic hard shell over it. But your folks know how to manipulate that. They know how to get in there. They work with their hands every day. So physically writing something matters. And it's not just for the recipient, because when you're writing that note, it makes an impression on you too. Mm-hmm. You're experiencing that gratitude. You're thinking about it. And they know you had to take a little bit of your time to write that handwritten note. And give that to them. And I think that's really important.
Wow. I'm so happy that you're doing this, and I'm going to try to publish this, Dr. Dave, as fast as I can so that we can get some leeway into this holiday period. I got a cancellation from a Christmas party that we always have. A bunch of friends, 20, 30 of us, just go and party hardy, a couple of weeks before Christmas. And it was canceled this year.
Right.
But the note was, we're going to do Christmas in July.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. And so if I got an invitation to a Christmas party for real and I didn't want to go, how do I handle that?
There recently was a whole article about how to handle the people who've invited us something that we're not comfortable going to. And I feel like we shouldn't feel this pressure to attend something where we don't feel safe. But on the other side of that, I recognize if somebody's inviting me to something, they don't want me to die. They're not doing it because they feel they're doing something unsafe. And I think the best way to handle it is to sort of take off on what you just described, where I might say, I'm not available this year. I don't have to give 5 reasons. I'm not available is the truth. I'm not available this year, but I can't wait to get together next year when we do this. And I think sometimes people feel like they have to have a reason why they're not comfortable doing something. And I think as the great personal finance guru Dave Ramsey says, no is a complete sentence. You don't always have to have a reason. And I don't mean we're just going to say no, but I think we can say, I'm not available or I can't make it this year. Thank you very much. I can't wait to see you guys again for the summer version of that Christmas party or whatever it is. If they don't offer that alternative. So I think we can just say, I can't make it. I'm not available. I won't be able to join you this time. And it saves everyone time because you don't have to write, hey, by the way, I have asthma, I have this, and that makes me more vulnerable. We don't have to give a reason. We can just say, thanks, I won't be able to make it. And I'll see you the next time.
I ran out of masks. I know. I mean, what?
My mask is in the laundry. The dog ate it.
I won't be able to make. Great advice. Any final words?
I hope that everybody is able to be in the moment when they're enjoying what they have around them to enjoy. And I really like focusing on the little things, that Christmas ornament, that tree ornament that I was given to hang on that tree. That was 20 seconds in my life. That happened, by the way, like 15 years ago, and I'm telling you about it now. Those things really are important and special. So to the degree that folks can focus on what delights them and what makes them happy on those traditions, those routines we talked about, that they can do something physical, that handwriting a note and connecting with other people, and let that be the thing that you celebrate and focus on.
Love it, Dave. Tell the stories. Dr. Dave Weiman, President, Weiman Consulting, leadership consulting firm in Philadelphia. Also, adjunct professor at Widener University for graduate clinical psychology and a certified performance coach through Johnson & Johnson Human Performance Institute. Thank you again for coming on and sharing your incredible wisdom.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time,